The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Rudy's Revelation.
What's up, people? Hey, everyone. Welcome to the podcast today. Today's episode, Trump has began the purge of the United States federal government. Let's see. Just bear with me here a second. We got to get into the headlines for today, January 22nd, 2025. We're going to start out with PJ Media. Trump is on a mission to purge Bidenistas from the federal government. And then the Post-Millennial says, "You're fired. Trump administration removes over 1,000 Biden-appointed staffers not aligned with MAGA." Goes on to say, quoting Trump, "My presidential personal office is actively in the process of identifying and removing over 1,000 presidential appointees from the previous administration." And then going back to PJ Media, Trump is on a mission to purge the Bidenistas. I'm just going to quote from the story here. "Our first day in the White House is not over yet. My presidential personal office is actively in the process of identifying and removing over 1,000 presidential appointees from the previous administration who are not aligned with our vision to make America great again." Just going to excuse me here. I thought I had it, had things worked out here, but did not. And things aren't working as I had hoped. All right, folks, we're going to get back into the headlines. The most important headline from today, it's actually from yesterday, is this one from USA Today. Trump revoked security clearances of former intelligence officials. Now, what we need to understand here, what is really important, and it hasn't been the fact that this story has been buried. Because it hasn't really been buried. But it's not coming up on general aggregates of news. And it's really important because he didn't do it in his first term when people were warning him to do it before the 2020 election. That these intel officials, some of whom are retired, but they still have full security clearances, which means they have access to all the incoming intel and analysis. So the Post-Millennial reports it as Trump revoked security clearance for John Bolton and 51 agents who said Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinfo. Bolton's book was rife with sensitive information drawn from his time in government. So the 51 agents wrote a letter, and you might have remembered this. This was during the 2020 campaign where Hunter Biden's laptop, which the FBI had for some time, that contained information detailing the Biden crime family's business of selling influence. And 51 former and current intelligence agents and officials wrote a letter saying that that was Russian disinformation, when we all know it wasn't. And the FBI knew it wasn't. And they had that information, they had the laptop already for some time. And it wasn't until right before the election that the repair shop owner made it public. And then Bobulinski came out and reiterated and confirmed that all the information on the laptop was accurate. And it was subsequently when this letter came out with the intel officials who said it was Russian disinformation. So they lied. And it's not surprising that intel officials lie. But it's important to know what the intelligence community really is. It is the enforcement agency, it's the enforcement arm, it's the intelligence arm of the elite. Because they're the ones that really control it, they control the information, and they use it against democratically elected Republican politicians. And I don't mean Republican as Republican Party, I mean Republic as we're a republic. And the people we elect, our representatives, our officials, shouldn't be undermined by career bureaucrats, because then we're no longer a republic. All right. Let's get to the list. I think it was only Politico. I think it was only Politico that had the actual complete list. They had a link to the letter, and I'm going to go down the list. So James Clapper is one of the heads of this cabal of former intel officials who still have power, did have power until they got their clearance revoked. James Clapper, former director of national intelligence, former undersecretary of defense for intelligence, former director of National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the NSA, DIA, Director of Defense Intelligence Agency, and then Mike Hayden, former director of the Central Intelligence Agency, that's the CIA, former director of National Security Agency, the NSA, and former principal deputy director of National Intelligence, and then Leon Panetta, who's former director of the CIA, John Brennan, former director of the CIA, Thomas Finger, former deputy director of National Intelligence for Analysis, Rick Ledgett, former deputy director, National Security Agency, John McLaughlin, former acting director, Central Intelligence Agency, former deputy director, Central Intelligence Agency, Michael Morrell. You might have known this guy. He looks a little bit like Crispin Glover. He definitely looks the part. Former acting director, CIA, former deputy director, CIA, Mike Vickers, former Undersecretary of Defense Intelligence, Doug Wise, former Deputy Director, Defense Intelligence Agency, Nick Rasmussen, former Director, National Counterterrorism Center, Russ Travers, former Acting Director, National Counterterrorism Center, Andy Lipman, former Deputy Director, National Counterterrorism Center. So these are names like the National Counterterrorism Center obviously is pulling some weight these days. John Mosman, former Chief of Staff, Central Intelligence Agency. Larry Pfeiffer, former Chief of Staff, CIA. Jeremy Bash, former Chief of Staff, CIA. Former Chief of Staff, Deputy Department of Defense. Rodney Snyder, former Chief of Staff, CIA. Former Director of Intelligence Programs, National Security Council. Glenn Gerstle, former General Counsel, National Security Agency. David Buckley, former Inspector General, CIA. Nada Bakos, former Analyst and Targeting Officer, CIA. Patty Brandmeier, former Senior Intelligence Officer, Central Intelligence Agency. James B. Bruce, former Senior Intelligence Officer, CIA. David Karen, former intelligence analyst, CIA, 50 plus years working in the intelligence community. Janice Cairns, the husband and wife team, I guess. Former operational support officer, CIA. Paul Colby, former senior operations officer, CIA. Peter Corsell, former analyst, Central Intelligence Agency. Brett Davis, former senior intelligence officer, CIA. Roger Zane George, former national intelligence officer. Stephen L. Hall, former senior intelligence officer, CIA. Kent Harrington, former national intelligence officer for East Asia, CIA. Don Hepburn, former senior national security executive. Timothy D. Kilbourne, former dean, Sherman Kent School of Intelligence Analysis, CIA. Interesting, Sherman Kent School. Ron Marks, former officer, CIA. Twice former staff of Republican Majority Leader. And Jana Highstand Mendez, Technical Operations Officer, CIA. Oh, there's more. Emily Nakle, former Director of Political Islam Strategist Analysis Program, CIA. Gerald O'Shea, his name is seen before, Senior Operations Officer, CIA. David Priest, former Analyst and Manager, CIA. Hal Bursley, former Deputy Director of Analysis, CIA. Paul Polymeropoulos, former Senior Operations Officer, CIA. Chris Savos, former Senior Intelligence Officer, CIA. Nick Shapiro, former Deputy Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor to the Director, CIA. John Cipher, former Senior Operations Officer, CIA. Stephen Slick, former Senior Director for Intelligence Program, CIA. National Security Council. Cynthia Strand, former Deputy Assistant Director of Global Issues, CIA. Greg Tarbell, former Deputy Executive Director, CIA. David Terry, former Chairman of the National Intelligence Collection Board, CIA. Greg Treverton, former Chair, National Intelligence Council. John Julius, former Senior Intelligence Officer, CIA. David Vanell, former Senior Operations Officer, CIA. Winston Wiley, former Director of Analysis, CIA. Kristen Wood, former Senior Intelligence Officer, CIA. In addition, 9 additional IC, Intelligence Community Officers, who cannot be named, so publicly also support the argument in this letter, which was that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. So they were wrong. Just like they were wrong when Iraq invaded Kuwait and several other things that they weren't aware of. And their intelligence people and analysts, that they should know better. And if you know anything about the intelligence community, up is down, black is white, everything is opposite of the way it should be in a transparent, honest environment. So they lie as a matter of course, so no one should ever trust what they say. So all of these 50 former people, some of whom still had security clearance, has now been revoked by Donald Trump, which he should have done during his first term, and then they wouldn't be meddling in politics. All right, the Daily Caller's got this next headline here. The reason Mike Turner got ousted from leading the Intel Committee, Secret Service Director testifies in a House hearing on attempted assassination of Donald Trump. Okay, who was Mike Turner? Mike Turner was a Republican representative in the House, and he led the House Committee on National Intelligence. And we're going to get into why he was ousted, why I brought this up. Previously, I've often put out videos about his appearances on Face the Nation. He was an intelligence asset in the fact that, and I'll get into the story now. In early January, Tablet Magazine published a piece that said Turner was boasting he would be taking over Trump's intelligence community by trying to get his staff director, Adam Howard, hired as National Security Council's senior director for intelligence. Tablet reported that Howard is meant to be Turner's instrument in the position. Turner and the National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, both disrupted the idea that Turner was influencing staffing decisions at the NSC. It goes on to say, no one is making personal decisions outside the President Trump and his transition team, and I mean it. That's it. That's Waltz told the Daily Caller. Regardless of its veracity, sources familiar with Turner's ousting told the caller that the report is still among a range of factors that influenced Turner's removal from the top post of the Intelligence Committee. However, these sources explain Turner would have likely still have been pushed out even if the tablet report had never dropped. Indeed, because him trying to ferret in some sort of mole or tool or instrument into the NSC and Trump's cabinet was going to be met with resistance, because Trump is not the Trump of his first term. He's a little bit wiser, particularly with concerns about the intelligence community, which is not, should be, because it vacuums up a lot of tax dollars, be on the mission of doing the will of the people and not the will of the deep state, the bureaucratic, the entrenched bureaucracy that was put in place by the elite to run America despite who was elected for office. With Johnson being selected as Speaker of the new Congress, he has the opportunity to choose his own chairs for select committees like the House Select Committee on Intelligence, the HPSCI, without input from steering committee. One of the biggest factors of Turner's dismissal was the view of most Republican conference that Turner is in bed with the intelligence community. And so he had to be removed because he would have leaked to the 51 former intelligence officials that their security clearance was going to be revoked. Right, moving on to just the news. Trump fires 4 top immigration court officials at the Justice Department. Chief immigration judge, and I like to name all the people here because that's why I went through the list of 51 there, because nobody had really named it before, and it should be being named. All the people should be named just as a matter of course. Nobody did that in mainstream media ever, not even when the letter dropped about Hunter Biden's laptop, and not now. You had to actually link to the letter, which had all the signatories on there. Signatories. So as Chief Immigration Judge Sheila McNulty, the Office of General Counsel Lauren Alder Reed, General Counsel Head Lauren Alder Reed, and Acting Director, names her twice, and Acting Director of Executive Office and Immigration Review Mary Cheng were fired, according to NBC News. So just the news here is not doing their proper copy editing. And then let's keep moving, though. The Associated Press is reporting Trump administration directs all federal diversity, equity, and inclusion staff to be put on leave. Washington Times reiterates Trump administration directs federal DEI staff to be put on leave. And this is going to be before their dismissal. So I believe they're on leave with pay. Since they're federal employees, they want to give them a little cushion, I imagine. But they're going to be sent out soon. All right, other big news. That was the biggest news, is the Purge. Other big news, if you weren't aware, we covered this, I think it was yesterday. We covered this on yesterday's Tuesdays with Perry, episode 103. I suggest you check it out, where we talked at length about some of the things Trump had already done in his first 24 hours in office. One of them being Trump announces $500 billion AI infrastructure project investment, according to One America News. And I just have to say, I am not a fan of AI, and this could be our undoing. But the reason this is important is because of how it's being done. The investment is important for a number of different reasons I'm going to get into in just a moment. The Federalist reports Trump announces $500 billion AI infrastructure plan that could help cure cancer. And this is the spin they put on it. $500 billion artificial intelligence investment plan working with 3 tech companies to build the infrastructure needed to beat China, which is the important part, and even help cure cancer, that's the spin they put on it. If you saw what they were talking about, or what Trump insisted they talk about during the press conference, was indeed the fact that they should talk about how this is going to help cure cancer. When, in all, realistically, it's about not who's going to cure cancer, but about who is going to have the advances in AI to build a robot army, autonomous weapon systems, et cetera, et cetera. So as much as it's going to help, and this is why Trump wanted to put that spin on there, as much as it was going to help, the actuality is going to displace human employment and human jobs and humans. And so they had to put a rosy spin on it, and that's, oh, it's going to cure cancer. We'll see. So in any case, the press conference included Oracle Chief of Technology, Larry Ellison. These people are kind of weird. If you look at Larry Ellison, he's kind of a weird guy. OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, who appeared like a child. I mean, everybody was like, I didn't know he was that young. SoftBank CEO Masayoshi Son. So Oshi, as he's known, he will join forces with these CEOs to build data centers and other infrastructure necessary for a competitive industry. The first project is set to build in Texas, and Trump said Stargate, which is the name of the program, would create over 100,000 jobs. What they're doing here is they're building large data centers. So if you want to know what happens next, is they will build nuclear power plants to power these large data centers, because that's what AI needs to work properly is the brain of the outfit, these data centers, which will be built in Texas, which will be hundreds of yards long. They'll be gigantic. And then the post-millennial reports, Trump announces Project Stargate, $500 billion AI infrastructure open investment with OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank. It'll ensure the future of technology. Like I said before, I'm not a fan of AI. I don't think any good is going to come out of it. I'm more of a Luddite these days. But you have to understand, $500 billion from SoftBank, investment from SoftBank. It's not taxpayer money that is going to fund private technology, which is fine, because it's going to create jobs. And getting $500 billion investment from SoftBank, which is Japanese, I think it's Japanese, or the guy's Japanese. But in any case, it's not coming from the taxpayer. It's a good deal either way. And most importantly, as I stated in the beginning, the race to AI to beat China is significant. Even though we'll do what we always do when we get a technological advantage, is then someone leaks it to our adversary. Happened with the atomic energy, the atomic weapons was leaked to the Soviet Union, and then Bill Clinton gave sensitive MIRV technology, rocket technology, to the Chinese. So this will probably be leaked to the Chinese as well. So who knows what the outcome is, but for today, the investment is positive. The overall direction of technology, I don't like where it's going. So if Trump ends up to be culpable in a disastrous dystopia, so be it. Mediaite is reporting, fuck it, release them all. White House insiders spill on Trump's blanket. January 6 pardons to Axios. Sure. First of all, Axios is a captured news outlet, has been captured by the intelligence agencies, CIA, etc. Just like The Hill, just like a lot of other mainstream news organizations, just because it's new, Axios is fairly new. So let's go to the story. Trump said, fuck it, release them all. One insider shared according to Axios. So, whether or not he went by a case-by-case basis, realistically, the prosecution of the January 6 rioters was a travesty for the simple reason is the people that actually encouraged the majority of crimes were never indicted, arrested, or, even publicly interviewed by the January 6 committee. And then those private interviews, Ray Epps, for example, all the transcripts have been destroyed. So we know that this whole thing reeks of intelligence, infiltration, and planning. They probably planned the whole thing to goad supporters of Donald Trump to go. All they have to do is go into the Capitol. And then they just need a few people in there to get photographed with zip ties or whatever. And the rest is history. ABC News 7 is reporting Oath Keepers, Proud Boys leaders out of prison after January 6 pardons. Enrique Tarrio and Stuart Rhodes were both free from prison on Tuesday. I saw Enrique Tarrio on Alex Jones yesterday. He didn't have too much to say. These guys were not involved in seditious conspiracy to overthrow the government or anything like that. It was ridiculous. And those were the most serious charges with the most stiff sentences of 20 plus years for him and Stuart Rhodes, and I think Joe Biggs. Some other people. I don't care about the blanket pardons. I don't even care if people were pardoned for tasing police officers or doing whatever. That whole thing was a sham. And the fact is that the January 6th committee destroying evidence and then getting preemptive pardons. I'm sure as Trump heard the news of that, said, fuck it. That's when they probably didn't put that, if that quote is accurate from Mediaite, they probably didn't put it in context, which is as soon as Trump heard of the preemptive pardons of the January 6th committee, then he said, fuck it, pardon them all. So that was probably the context. So you might have heard of this story. This is from Fox News. Trump excoriates Bishop as radical left hardline Trump hater after politically charged prayer service. Trump fired back at Bishop Marianne Edgar Budd, who subjected him to left-wing remarks during a prayer service the day after his inauguration. You should see it. And they didn't squirm too much. They were pretty stoic, which I got to give them credit for. Only Tiffany was the one kind of looking. She saw the camera and she's like, look, I'm on camera. And then the reverend started talking. She kind of looked around. It was like, and J.D. Vance did the same thing. J.D. Vance looked at his wife, Usha, and was like, what are they talking about? Protect the trans people. Trans people have the rights that everyone else has. Changing gears now, so stay with me. Washington Post. Ku Klux Klan flyers in Kentucky order immigrants to leave now, police say. Who believes this is bullshit? Probably organized by the intelligence agencies. I don't believe people that belong to the Klan. I don't think they're putting out anonymous flyers to immigrants. I just don't. I don't think. And the funny thing about the Washington Post, they have a march, a Ku Klux Klan march here, a picture of such. But it's not from, so immediately you relate it to the fact that, oh, there was a rally and attendees at the rallies were handing out flyers. No, these flyers were put out anonymously. The flyers were reported Monday in Bellevue, Ludlow, and Fort Wright, small northern Kentucky cities near Cincinnati. As the nation marked both Martin Luther King Day and the inauguration of President Trump, Trump has railed against immigrants and pledged to launch a mass deportation campaign upon assuming office. Excuse me. Yeah, I don't believe it. It's anonymous. I don't believe anything anonymous. Even it's, a quoted anonymous source or things that are handed out anonymous. We had that in the middle of the city that I used to work in, which is no bastion of the Ku Klux Klan. There were some notices regarding immigrants and things like that were put around town. And you got to believe it's leftists doing that, because, and I'm not saying we don't have people that subscribe to neo-Nazism around. I'm sure that people that do. But the amount of organized affiliation to adopting that sort of ideology, I'm sure, is very small. Not all, but some. So I want to move on to this other story, which is kind of interesting. It's from the Telegraph. And it concerns my Luddite point of view and dystopian technology, technocracy, et cetera, et cetera. So Spain calls on world to fight against Trump's Silicon Valley technocast. Pedro Sanchez accuses ultra-right-wing American billionaires of threatening democracy in Europe with their stranglehold on social media. Well, they own it. So whatever. And there's no mandate to use social media. So if you don't like the influence, let's say, of MSNBC, just stop watching it. Or Fox News, just stop watching it. If you don't like the influence peddled by social media companies or their algorithms, just don't use it. Or tell people not to use it. It's okay. I don't have any concern about that. Just don't use it. I don't believe in social media. I use it my social media is this podcast. And if people want to watch it, they can watch it. I put it out there on my social media pages. But I don't sit there and opine on Twitter. Sometimes I used to, when I followed this blog, I used to comment on the blog because, it was a leftist blog actually. And I would just correct people when they were talking stupid. Moving on to the next article, BBC, Instagram hides search results for Democrats. Shoes on the other foot now. While users who typed hashtag Democrat or hashtag Democrats see no results, the hashtag Republican returns 3.3 million posts on social media platform. All right, first of all, I have to say something about hashtags. If you don't know how this works, hashtags are trending search terms. Okay? So obviously, hashtag Democrats isn't trending right now. So I just want to put that out there. So they say, but Republicans are trending with 3.3 million posts on social media platform returns. By manually searching Instagram for Democrats rather than clicking on hashtag, users are greeted by a screen reading, we've hidden these results. Again, you're searching just on Instagram. The Republicans had the benefit of Google hiding conservative and Republican search terms. And Wikipedia even put Nazism under their definition of Republicanism. So we had that to deal with. If you're just searching on Meta or Instagram for Democrats, and you get no results. I don't know, bring it up with Zuckerberg. But now you know how it feels. And I'm not advocating for this. I'm just saying there might be a simple explanation. Results for the term you search for may contain sensitive content, because probably all the things that have Democrats in there is bad mouthing by conservatives. There are also limited results when people search for Republicans as opposed to Republican, because people use hashtag Republicans in derogatory ways, and probably the same thing with Democrats. We're aware of the error affecting hashtags across the political spectrum, and we are working quickly to resolve it, Meta told BBC in a statement. Okay. I don't trust social media. I don't trust anything online. I use it for research, but, I try to confirm any research I uncover with something that corroborates it from a different source. Variety is reporting in tech news. The Brutalist, which is a new movie with Adrian, the hell is that guy's name, that actor? Adrian, something or other. Sparks backlash after editor reveals use of AI in dialogue in buildings, but says it's nothing that hasn't been done before. I forget the actor. Adrian Brody, sorry. So The Brutalist is supposed to be a really cool movie about an immigrant architect who was one of the stars of brutalism. If you don't know what brutalism is in architecture, it's what came out of the Eastern Bloc in the Soviet era, which they just made ugly buildings. They weren't ornate. They were plain boxes with more boxes, and to be more creative, they put boxes atop boxes with squares and things. It's really uninspiring, I should say. So what they did in the movie is use AI, which they've been doing in a lot of other, particularly Netflix and other series. And this is what the whole thing, the protests about AI with the actors is particularly a secondary actors, stand-ins and doubles, so forth and so on, extras. What they do now is they put extras in digitally, so they don't need extras anymore with AI. Also, they alter things in the background. That's been done before. But most of it is done without the need of special effects artists, which is the problem. Like I said, AI undermines human employment. Whether you're a studio extra or you're a special effects video artist who actually would have to go in manually and insert created extras or to change buildings and things like that. More tech news from the Daily Dot. Paul Schrader, writer of Taxi Driver, admits AI is better at generating film ideas than people. Well, I hold a different opinion. I think things coming out of humans is laudable, and things coming out of machines the machine is just doing what's designed to do. So a machine doesn't have, it has a spark, but it doesn't have that divine spark of creativity, which is the most important thing. Right, sticking with Fox News here and technological news. So this is something from the Trump administration you might be interested in. A new security seal of approval is coming to your smart home gadgets. Now, a smart solution to protect your connected home from cyber threats. What is this? It's more of the same. The U.S. Cyber Trust Mark, a new cybersecurity safety label, is set to appear on smart products sold in the United States later this year. The program aims to make informed decisions about the safety of the smart devices you bring into your home. I mean, we've seen this all before. This is the trust mark, U.S. Cyber Trust Mark. Unique and strong default passwords, providing software updates, implementing data protection measures, incorporating incident detection capabilities, instructions for changing the default password, steps for securely configuring the device, details on automatic updates and how to access them, the product's minimum support period, notification if the manufacturer doesn't offer updates for the device. So, what are we talking about here? We're talking about they're just slapping a badge on something that's supposed to protect you. Everybody who deals with tech knows all these procedures anyway, but it doesn't matter. What we're trying to tell you is, doesn't matter if it has a seal of approval. Anything that's connected to the internet can be accessed over the internet. This camera here, my computer, any smart device you might have in your house. The reason they're doing this is to allay some fear that people might have about getting smart devices in their homes, smart light fixtures, smart dishwashers, et cetera, smart refrigerators. Because it's been previously stated, they're all going to spy on you in some way, shape, or form. Your car is the same way. So you should be aware that devices that you have in your home that are connected to the internet can spy on you or relay information that it collects on you, which they're designed to do. So whether it has the trust seal or doesn't have the trust seal, that doesn't really matter. It'll spy on you. There's something to be said for the Luddite revolution. You know what? Men of a certain age just want to go into a cabin by a lake, forego electricity and technology, return to hunting and fishing kind of way of life. All right, let's change gears here with some Fox News. Liberal parents struggle with Trump voting sons. New York Times reports President Donald Trump won a majority of male voters, 18 to 44 in the election. So, the New York Times had a story not too long ago. I think it was in the beginning of the campaign season. What was the story? It was like a 60-inch story with lots of pictures. Young kid trying to explain to his father why he shouldn't vote for Trump. Because the younger generation knew better and the old guy didn't really know what he was doing. Don't you know that Trump is evil? So it had this long, it only covered one father and son, so there wasn't a lot of support there for the theory. But it showed how the son had to deal with the dad and had to move out, and then he moved back, and when he moved back, he wanted to convince his dad that, Trump's a bad guy. Now, the Times put out this story that it's the liberal dad has to school his son because now all the young people are going for Trump. It skips generation. Not like the millennials are all. So it's all these young people that are going through college now that are resisting the indoctrination, that are learning about the conspiracy, that are voting for Trump, that know what the fuck's going on, know about intelligence agencies, that don't believe that Thomas Crooks took it upon himself with no outside influence to crawl on top of that glass manufacturing building and take a shot at the former president and soon-to-be president of the United States. He was influenced to be there. Everybody knows that. And we don't even know if he was the only participant in the assassination attempt. Anyway, let's go back to this Fox News article. Liberal parents are now the ones clashing with their conservative sons after the election. When Eli brought a Make America Great Again hat home from college this summer, Alex Bear threw it in the corner of his bedroom. They argued about guns, immigration, and abortion, struggling to do so without permanently damaging the relationship. Facts don't matter to you, Alex Baer wrote in a moment of frustration during one exchange about Mr. Trump's legal battles. I love you. Have a good day. But Eli, Eli should be the one. Facts don't matter to you. Old dynamic of liberal children fighting with their conservative parents is over. It just has to do with the truth. What the truth is and what the gray area is and what lies are. And people are done with trusting authority who lie and lie and lie and lie over and over and over again to the constituency that's supposed to run, the electorate that's supposed to run the country. So I don't know why people don't understand that. So if you're lying to the people in a republic that are supposed to be running the country through their elected representatives, what are you doing? You're mind controlling, you're brainwashing the electorate for what? To ignore their best interest and decide with the interest of the elite, which have benefited largely from the Biden administration. And it goes back to the intended end of the agenda, which is neo-feudalism. And if you don't know what that is, that just means there's a small people that have everything and a large amount of people that have nothing. Indentured servitude, which we're already in. And then they want to take the indentured servitude that the credit slavery, debt slavery is brought upon the nation and the world, and they want to move it to the next level of control. And I think people are wising up to the trick just in time, especially young people who, if you're out there and you're under 25 or whatever, and you're listening, if there is a conspiracy, just look into it and don't take any authoritative statements that it doesn't exist. Because the conspiracy theorists were right. The people in charge lie to you, and then they do things that are harmful to you and are against your interest. More Fox News. New Secretary of State Marco Rubio pauses refugee operations, ramps up visa vetting. Rubio was unanimously confirmed by the Senate Monday night and was sworn in by Tuesday morning. So Rubio is an establishment Republican. Little Marco, as he was called, took his hat in hand and agreed to be Secretary of State, which is fine. I explained this yesterday. To access the national security blob, which is still controlled by the establishment, is necessary to be a successful Secretary of State. Now, if he does anything to turn on Trump, he could be replaced. My problem is with Marco Rubio being Secretary of State, running the State Department, is the State Department controls the CIA from the 7th floor for all intents and purpose. So we'll see what the gentleman that's head of the CIA will do now to stop the State Department from running the CIA. More Fox News. Eric Adams says New York City is coordinating with ICE as mass migrant deportations loom. They're already starting. Adams said that his administration is coordinating with the feds with regard to deporting criminal legal aliens. So I'm going to get to this in just a second, but Tom Homan has started ICE operations with forays into blue cities, which were repelled. I mind you that they've been repelled. So the lawsuits have started, but Homan wanted to see where he could go first before he started. I'm sure there are operations going on in New York City. New York Post is reporting President Trump delivers fresh tariff threats against EU and China, specifically 10% punitive duty on China imports because fentanyl is being sent from China into U.S. via Mexico and Canada. Trump voiced his latest tariff threats in remarks to reporters at the White House a day after taking office. immediately imposing tariffs as he had promised. Financial markets and trade groups exhaled briefly and moved the 25% tariff deadline against Canada and Mexico to February 1st. Very important. Very important. So I have a short out there about tariffs. The threat of tariffs is not tariffs, as I explained with Perry yesterday on our 103rd episode of Tuesdays with Perry. The threat of tariffs is not a tariff. When a tariff is imposed, we'll see what happens. I'm not a fan of blanket tariffs either. They should be targeted, but he's not taking anything off the table because a threat of a tariff, not a tariff. Follow my drift. Just the News is reporting on day 2 of Trump administration, Homeland Security reinstates Remain in Mexico policy. Very good. And what I was getting to earlier, PJ Media is reporting ICE is back in business. Holman declares that deportation operation has already begun. As I stated, he's trying to send ICE into blue cities. They've been rebuffed and repelled from the sanctuary cities. New York won't be a problem, obviously, because Eric Adams wants a pardon. I think Adams was unfairly targeted because he doesn't like the waves of illegal immigration that cost his city $6 billion in the first year. So the PJ Media story goes on to say all these teams are out there as of today. We gave them the direction to prioritize public safety threats that we're looking for. So we've been working on the target list. So there is a target list, as there should be. People that were let into the interior of the United States that were known to be criminals, either charged or jailed previously outside of the country or in some cases inside the United States. Now, the next story up is the fact that the resistance is still there, but it's more muted. It hasn't softened. It's muted because of the lack of numbers as it was in Trump's first campaign, but the mainstream media is already started riling up the progressive brown shirts known as Antifa, who are now launching attack on Portland ICE detention center. The incident was in retaliation to the Trump administration's mass deportation operations that cracked down on illegal immigrants. So, as I said, there was a foray into blue cities. Portland was one of them. Whether operations happened or not, or were successful, it's hard to say. Antifa might have been trying to break out people that were detained by ICE. So the brown shirts have been activated, and it's only day 1. So I imagine there's going to be quite a serious backlash from the violent anarchists, because these are the brown shirts of the Progressive Party, and they will be, mark my word, they will be, well, they are ready, but they will be activated. They already have been activated, and so you will see there will be riots. There will be Antifa doing what they always do, doing what they did on January 6th, instigating criminal behavior as a way to protest the Trump administration. So, Postmillennial is reporting Antifa trans activists swarm University of Washington TPUSA event, forcing cancellation. No TPUSA transphobia at University of Washington, so they say. So this is Washington State. So my advice to the Trump administration would be deal with the Pacific Northwest last. That's the bastion of progressive ideology. Wall it off. Interdict as much as you can around the edges, Oregon and Washington. And concentrate on cities that were in Trump win states. So Minneapolis or wherever you're going, Chicago. Although Trump didn't win Illinois, but maybe some of the swing states. So, Unheard has published the story, Anthony Fauci's pardon shames America. His COVID cover-up undermined faith in science. Well, I'm going to have to agree with that. Because Fauci is a criminal. Anyone involved in gain-of-function research for the past, let's say, 12 years, since 2012, is when the moratoriums were kicking in because CRISPR came online and it became too dangerous. That anybody involved in gain-of-function research, you got to realize that you were creating biological weapons and that shouldn't be allowed ever for any reason, because if it gets out, we're all going to die. And so why would you play with such things? So what was the big crime that Dr. Fauci did? He was involved with skirting the moratorium on this dangerous research and organizing the efforts to continue it outside of U.S. borders. So in Ukraine and in China, which I don't know how this happened and whether he was involved, that the Chinese communists were in this country helping develop deadly pathogens, working at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, working at BSL-4 labs in Canada, where samples were stolen, biological material was stolen from Canada, more than likely the coronavirus, CoV-2, and then it was taken to China because nobody really knows. They're saying they were taking it from bats. We had already done all the research here in the United States. I don't think they would start from scratch in Wuhan. And because Americans like Peter Daszak and the EcoHealth Alliance were involved, not only with funding, but probably with other things as well. We'll have to see. Those people should be indicted too. As this is all dangerous business. So Donald Trump should launch an investigation into Anthony Fauci. The Unheard article goes on to say there is no defense for offering clemency to the central figure in a scientific scandal of epic global significance. And then it talks about COVID. I mean, the COVID mitigation measures are, locked in your house, 6 feet apart, masks, whatever. Those pale in comparison to the dangers of gain-of-function research. Almost to the post. I think I'm a couple minutes short. Thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share the podcast. Join me every day, Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. live on Rumble. And check out my other website, libpop.org, which I might have to retire soon. I have to tighten the belt on expenses. And don't forget, you're under attack psychologically, biologically. There are a lot of medications out there that you shouldn't be willing to take. And there's a lot of things being reported out there that you shouldn't accept because they're trying to control your mind. The best tool for that is social media. But there are others, mainstream media. Mainstream media and social media together. If you want to find the truth, you can find it out just using Google. Use a search engine and just type things in and read books. Most importantly, nonfiction books on subject matter of your choice. And you'll see there's, a lot of shit out there. You'll never learn the truth from watching television. And that's what Aaron Schwartz knew about JSTOR. JSTOR is actually the repository for all the written information on truths, really. And that's why he wanted to break it open and give it to the public, because it's behind a paywall. And it has several paywalls. The deeper you go into information, the more you drill down, the more you have to pay. So there's several gates of information, and some are locked. You can't even pay to get in them. And so, like I said, reading, if you want to understand unknown truths, the best way to do it is through reading. All right, thanks again for joining me today. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out. Respect. See you tomorrow.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
The New World Order.
This is a conspiracy.